This is a teachers and students discussion with J. Krishnamurti at Brockwood Park, 1973.
What shall we talk about?
So can we talk about this school?
Talk about the school. What about the school?
How we can make it a creative experiment.
Right, sir. Don't you want some windows open? It's all getting foggy. Now, I've just come back from India. I've been all over India, different parts of India. And I've also been to Rome. And I've noticed that things are getting very bad and the world is in a very peculiar, destructive state, degenerating. People don't want to work. There are strikes, as in England. The war is apparently over in Vietnam, but there is really no peace there. The communist world is also very disturbed. There's corruption everywhere. Corruption in the sense, not only the passing money under the table, but also corruption in the sense everybody's thinking selfishly, fragmentarily, and thinking in circles. I think these are all fairly obvious. And our artists can't go any further. They have come to the end of things. They have tried every kind of expression, objective painting, all the rest of it, and they too have come to a point when they can't go any further. And poverty, of which you know absolutely nothing, as in India, is spreading. At least where there are severe droughts, lack of rain, and with poverty goes degradation. Every kind of violence goes on. There are terrible things happening in South America, Brazil, and so on. I do not know if you are aware of all this. Probably you are in your study of current history, current events. And one wonders what is going to be the outcome of it. You're going to face all this when you leave this place. I've taught in various schools in India. But India is extraordinary, it's a peculiar phenomenon, which I won't go into. And right through the world, young people don't want to work. They don't want to study. Some of them do, of course. But their study is memorizing, learning from books, cultivating memory, stirring up information which can be used mechanically, and thereby earn a livelihood, and that apparently is superficially very satisfactory. So what is the relationship between the group and the community here and the vast community of the world? What is going to happen to you all? This isn't a rhetorical question or a stupid question or merely a stimulating intellectual question. But what's going to happen to you? They're starting various schools in India. We've already got 2 schools in the north, one in the north, one in the south. They're going to have 3 more schools, all underrun on the same basis as here. And we have been discussing a great deal what is education, what are the people who are going to, what are the students who are going to turn out from these places, what will they become? Caught in the stream of commercialism, consumerism, and selfishness. Apparently that is the pattern right through the world. Are you following all this? And one has met a great many so-called very important people, politically, literally, and enormous following, but it all seems so childish and appalling, dreadful what is happening. I don't think you know the full depth of that word. It's really quite frightening. Frightening in the sense how destructive it all is, how degenerating it is becoming. So that is the picture, not exaggerated, not one-sided, and people who have observed for many years agree to what we are saying now. And when you leave this place, what is your fate? If I can use that word, what's going to happen? Either you know how to work both intellectually and physically, therefore able to stand on your own against this current that's drawing, sucking people into it, the current of commercialism, consumerism, and vast selfishness. Either you're going to be drawn into it unknowingly or knowingly. And if you know how to work, how to study, how to use your mind, then you may fit into it or not fit into it, be sucked into the current or stand alone. So when one comes to Brockwood and sees the beauty of the winter, the bare trees, the lovely lines of a branch, and the peace and the quiet and the beauty of the place, one is rather shocked by it all. And whether Brockwood offers you, or it may offer and you do not utilize it, offers you the opportunity to really use your brain, to use your highest capacity, both intellectual and physical and psychological, whether such thing is happening here. One wants to cry. At the things that are happening. And here's a group community, a group so-called fairly serious, fairly thoughtful people, whether their idea of freedom and work and so-called discipline go together, or freedom is a word that is misused and therefore doing what one wants to do, and whether mentally using the capacity of the brain to its fullest extent, at least I feel Brockwood is that kind of, should be or is that kind of place where the mind, I mean the mind, physical, psychological, emotional, the whole thing is the mind. Whether that mind is being cultivated, strengthened, vitalized and active, or it's merely a place where you pass few years rather sloppily, not using or cultivating your brain. Because the brain is very important. Unless you have a very good mind, not clever mind. One has met clever people all over the world, very smart, very cunning, very alive in the sense alive to their own sensitivity, to their own selfishness, to their own narrowness, unless one has this sense of depth in the mind, you're going to be completely smothered by the world. Don't make any mistake about it. You're going to be. If that's what you want, do it thoroughly. Be smothered. But if you don't want it, you must have, you have to have got a great deal of work to do. And whether Brockwood is offering such an opportunity for you to work. Work in the sense, not merely pass exams, I don't mean that so much. Work in the sense whether we can do things together. Work in the sense, think together. In the process of thinking, share together what we have found. Work together in the sense, see what the world is. It's a terrible world, mad world. And whether you have got the vitality, the energy, the depth to stand against all that and be, in the deep sense of that word, creative. Or you're going to turn out to be the good old bourgeois. With a nice house and a little family and all that business. So it's up to you. And can we do this at Brockwood together? Not each one pulling in a different direction. That's what the world is doing. So, what is it we are doing together here? It's a community, so-called an educational center. I wonder if the word education is the right word at all. It is generally understood when one uses the word, reading a lot of books, storing up information, and using it either selfishly or for a particular cause or a particular sect, and making oneself important in that sect or organization. Generally, that's what's happening. Am I painting the picture all right? Are we using our minds to its highest capacity? Or we're just slowing down? One says, I can go on talking, but I want to find out from what you say, what you think. One has to be terribly serious, I'm afraid. You can laugh and play and have a good time, but at the core, one has to be terribly serious in this world. So you are up against it. How you will respond later on, college and all the rest of it. How you will respond depends what you are now, what you are doing now. Whether you have observed what is happening in the world, fragmented, broken up, each one fighting the other commercially, intellectually and emotionally. Different types of war, economic, social, class, and the ordinary war of butchery. And the worship of success. And you have to face this, and whether you have the capacity to see it and not enter into the game at all. I think Brockwood offers, at least as I see it, an opportunity for you to have this inward strength to stand against all this. And whether you use that opportunity is up to you. And of course up to the grown-up people too. That's why I feel it's very important to know what it means to work. Physically, with your hands, psychologically, with your mind, to work hard. Are you doing that here? Or is it all rather slack? Or you say, well, we are free to do what we want, and therefore we don't work. If we don't want to work, we don't work. I was talking to, in Bombay, about 8,000 people. 8,000. That's what they told me. 4 talks and 8,000 people at each one of them. And what has the feeling of being popular. You know what that means? And I loathe that word. And the feeling of being popular. Because it's no meaning. And a man said to me afterwards, in the plane, he said, I came to your talks, it was marvelous to see so many people. And you must feel very pleased to have such a crowd. I said, for God's sake. You see the mentality of such people? So to withstand all this nonsense and dirt and filth, what human beings have made of themselves, have made of the world, one has to be extraordinarily clear. One has to have a great sense of harmony in oneself. Harmony between the mind, the heart and the mind. Not that there is such a division, but the sense of harmony.
What work is there to do besides seeing all the problems? I mean, that's the work, isn't it?
But how do you see the problems? Everybody sees the problems. Everybody who is at all little alive, little watchful, you see, everybody sees this problem. But how do they see it? How do you see it?
Well, you have to see how you react or how you act when you see
it. How do go on, sir? Go into it. How do you react? How do you see all this? Do you see all this as though it was out there? Or do you see it in relationship?
I see it as our expression is.
Huh?
I see it as like art. Like all the problems are like our expression.
Do you consider all that is part of you? Or you don't belong to all that? Are you an outsider looking in? You follow what I mean? Or looking without being an outsider? You observe all this. The worship of success, the brutal business, the intellectual worship of things, the storing up knowledge, the computers which are called fast idiots. I think there is a good name there for the computer. How do you look at it? Are you all that, or are you different from all that? Are you free of all that? All that is the result of our greed, ambition, competition, worship of success, division, asserting oneself, thoughtlessness, all that.
Maybe we're not free of it, but we're not part of it right now.
You may be free of it, because
No.
You're not free of it, or you're not aware you're part of it.
Because like every day, you might say, I'm not a part of this. You go to Winchester or something like that. I'm not a part of this smoking, this drinking stuff, all this, things go on.
But that's...
But then that can happen to you any day, when you're in your room or something, if someone talks to you, it's still in you, you still can be selfish. You can still be this.
No, what I mean is, do you look at all this as something different from you? As something different from you? Or when you look at it, you are part of it. You are it. Or there may be moments when you are not that. When you are quietly thinking about... You may not, but as long as one is selfish, ambitious, greedy, possessive, all the business, you are that.
Say if we came to Brockwood and we're not a part of it, or we somehow fool ourselves that we're not a part of this, but...
I don't know, I'm asking you.
Yeah, that's why I say maybe we...
You may be fooling yourself, saying, well, we are different, or we are very young, therefore it's not our job yet to be concerned with it. If you don't lay the foundation now, when you're young, I don't see how you're going to lay it later. On the contrary, in about 10 years' time, you'll all be married, children, you have sunk. Sorry, not that you get married and have children, but it's to sink.
There's still this tendency to discriminate between what is nasty and what is necessary.
Stimulate?
Yes, to get down to practical things, we have to associate ourselves with or be involved with everything that's here. You take a simple example like work in the garden. It's nice to work out there when it's sunny and warm.
Good. And it's almost awful to work in a day like this. So, look, what are you all going to do?
What do you mean?
What I mean? What do I mean? What's your future? Not astrologically. What do you want to do? What's going to happen to you? Or haven't you thought about it? If you haven't thought about it, just leave it alone. Because you're too young maybe to think about it. But if you do think about it at all, what's going to happen to you?
I don't quite get what you mean exactly. Is it what the future is, what you can do or what you think you want to do?
Both.
Oh.
Can you separate what you can do and what you want to do? What is it you want to do?
I can tell you what I don't want to do.
Yes, all right, sir. What is it you don't want to
I
do?
don't want to be part of what I see.
All right, then what will you do about it? I may not want to be part of all this muck. And I have to do something. I can't just say, well, I don't want to be, and just stay in my room. I can't stay in my room. I have to eat, I have to clothe myself, I have to have a shelter, I have to do something.
Well, you can work, you can leave here and just get a job.
So what is it the mind says to you? What is it mind wants in this world to do?
You can get a job, but just having a job, is
Job isn't the point.
Yeah.
You can get a job
Anybody.
if you're lucky enough. Or if you say, well, I don't want to work, you can live on somebody's... I met a man. He hitchhiked literally from New York, worked his way across the ocean, across the sea, and hitchhiked from Paris to Delhi. Understand what that means? Do you? There are buses going from, I believe some go from London, others go from Paris, from Istanbul, across Persia, enter Afghanistan, you follow, from north, and hitchhike, and then come down to New Delhi. This chap, because he's a strict, he's a Brahmin and strict vegetarian, therefore all they had there on the voyage, meat, hard, butter which stank, and he lived on, lived on cucumber, few fruit, bananas, an occasional orange for 3 weeks. He said, I want to go to India. He said, and I'm going to spend my life, when I get to India, being a really religious man. You follow, sir? Whatever that may mean, I won't go into that. So go, what will you all do? I'm really interested. What's going to happen to you?
It seems that the more you look at things, the less are the possibilities.
The less you want to do anything.
Not, yeah, in a sense, yes. Not because of laziness or anything like that, but it seems that most things are involved.
But you have, I know, but therefore what will you do? You can't just sit back and say, I won't do anything. You got to eat. You got to rest yourself. You got to place somewhere to sleep. You have got to do something.
She says there are so few things you can do.
What?
She says there are so few things you can do.
Are there so few
Can't go
things?
hitchhike to India.
Do you want to hitchhike to India? No, don't do it. Are there so few things to do in life without getting involved in all this mess? Good Lord.
I would look at rather everything you can do without, but everything seems to be also contaminated by this
Yes.
mess. So whatever you do, you have to be careful. I mean, that's the way I look at it.
So what will, that means everything that you do will be contaminated. Is that it?
Well, you have to deal with, I mean, however it is, you have to deal with this.
So how will you deal with it? You have to pay taxes. You have to, unless you have capital and so on, all the rest of it, then you're probably for a few years you don't have to work. But you have to work, you have to do things. Unless you join a monastery, and many people are doing it because it's a nice way of living. If you like that kind of living. Or is that question rather irrelevant with people who are still very young, whose mind is not sufficiently, I'm not using the word derogatorily, mature. And so this question may be not right. But we are sufficiently old enough to see that unless you lay a foundation now, foundation in the sense foundation of observation, how you observe, and what your reactions are, and why those reactions exist, non-analytically. Unless you do that, it'll be very difficult to face all this. Don't you think so? And whether you're doing it. Not coerced, not bullied, not driven, but doing it, like a flower that blossoms. Blossoms whether it's foul weather or fair weather. It's got the vitality to blossom. Whether that's going on.
I wonder whether one can survive when one is put in a place where everybody is fighting and without also fighting. I mean,
yes, Tunki, what will you put yourself in that position? What are you going to do? Everybody is fighting around you in different ways. In the literal world, they are fighting. In the economic world, they are fighting. In the religious world, they are fighting. Politically, they are fighting. They are fighting everywhere, all around you, violence. And what will you do? How will you meet this? Which means, have you now, being in this place, thought about violence? What is involved in violence? How violence arises? How the shape of violence, the structure of violence. This physical violence, there is the violence of obedience. Are you obeying and therefore being violent? You understand what I mean? When I obey what you are saying, I am suppressing what I think, right? And therefore suppression will burst out one day. I might get angry with you because I am obeying somebody else. You follow? There's physical violence, violence brought about through obedience, violence of competitiveness, violence of conformity. When I conform to a pattern, I'm being terribly violent. You see the connection? when I live a life of fragmentation, that is, think one thing, say another, do another. That's a fragmentation. From that, that's also violence. That breeds violence. I may be very quiet, very gentle, do all the work, but I flare up, which indicates that in me there has been suppression. There are all kinds of things. So violence isn't just physical violence. It's a very complex question, violence. And if you haven't thought about it, and when you are faced with violence, then you will react most unintelligently. Do you conform? Which means conforming to a pattern and not wanting to conform, saying that you must be free and doing what you like. Also, that's violence. I don't know if you see that. Isn't it? When we are living together, and I say to myself, I'll do what I like. Isn't that violence? Don't answer, do you? Isn't that violence?
But can one live in this world without having any violence at all?
Huh?
But can one live in this world without having any violence?
Find out, but one has to, that's what I mean, work. Find out how to live a life in which there is no violence.
Sir, you said a minute ago about suppression, and one day I'm going to flare up when I, in violence or whatever. You think maybe here, I can see where, if we discuss things as they came up, and not suppress things, that would. I don't know if there's a form of suppression or I don't, that's a. Talk about things.
Wait. Let's take one by one. Physical violence, you know what it is? Getting angry, hitting each other. Somebody bullying you, verbally. That's one kind of violence, right? Obedience. That's violence, isn't it? Would you say it's not violence? I obey when I keep to the left side of the road. Is that violence? Why? Go on, sir. Move.
If you didn't, you'd get run over.
Yeah. So, which means what?
It's a fact.
So, there are facts, and what else? Go on, you.
And things we produce in our head that don't really exist.
I obey the law which says keep to the right in Europe. And the law says in England keep to the left. Is that violence? No, obviously not. You see why? Right. Is it, if you obey somebody whom you think is superior in knowledge, is that violence? I know mathematics. I teach you mathematics. And we discuss, but in that there is a sort of imitation, conformity, and obedience, isn't there? No? Oh, come on. Is that violence? No. All right. Society says you must go and kill the Muslims or the communists. Huh? Is that violence? Why? There's not only physical violence involved in it, but in it is involved a so-called love of country, nationalism, right? Division of yourself as an Englishman or a German or a Russian or Italian or a Muslim or a Hindu, which is a form of violence, right? So, how will you have the insight to see where obedience is not violence and where obedience is violence? Go on, sir, discuss it. Do you see the difference? And violence, conforming. I conform, I imitate when I keep to the left. I put on trousers here in this country. When I go to India, I put on another kind of Indian dress. Is that conformity? And I inwardly conform to being a Hindu. Though I put on trousers and all the rest of it, I conform inside to my tradition, to my beliefs, to my countries, etc., etc. Isn't that violence? So, where is the line between violence and to see for oneself where freedom is order? All violence is disorder, right? Conformity. You understand? Don't misunderstand what I'm saying. Afterwards, say, well, I won't conform and go off and do some silly thing. Violence is disorder, right? And the whole world is involved in this disorder of different categories. In the business world, there is tremendous disorder. Though there are marvelous companies run most efficiently, they are fighting each other, right? So it is disorder. Though I obey the law, keeping to the left, in the business world or in the world of this or that, I am creating disorder, right? So, I see disorder and freedom from disorder is order, right? Obviously. And to discern, to have intelligence or insight, to see any movement towards disorder is violence. Any movement. I wonder if you get all this. I see, I've put on trousers here in this country. Because otherwise if I put on the Indian clothes, I'll be too cold and it'll be too noticeable. It will look rather absurd. So I put on trousers. Is that conformity? To me it's not. But it is conformity if I say, well, I am a Hindu. With my tradition, with my belief, with my superstitions, with my custom, habits, the whole business of it. So I won't conform. Because that conformity there leads to disorder. The Hindu, the Muslim, all the rest of it. So I wipe out Hinduism from my blood. That is real freedom. And I see obedience to obey. Because somebody says you should do this. But somebody has said keep to the left. Somebody has said go to church. Somebody has said you are an Englishman. And I say, yes, I'm an Englishman. Or a German, whatever it is. That is obedience. I don't know if you follow all this. Whereas when you are aware of the factors of disorder, then, though you keep to the left of the road, you are free because there is order in your life. I don't know if you follow all this. This is really education, you understand? To live a life of tremendous order, in which obedience is understood, in which conformity is seen where it is necessary, where it's totally unnecessary. Where I'm imitation. When I learn a language, it is an imitation. But whether there is any sense of imitation inwardly, that's too complex. I won't go into the question.
Sir, would you say that when you imitate inwardly, then you have conflict?
What?
Then you have conflict into you when you, for instance, you learn a language and you do it because you feel you have to do it.
No.
But if you do, then you're...
There is nothing you have to do. I've never lived a life which says I have to do this. I don't know if you see. Yeah. I go to America, I go to Canada, because it's an intelligent thing to do. It's not I have to do it. I may use word I have to go to New York, but that's manner of speaking. If I'm forced by circumstances, that's violence. If I'm forced by a group of people to say, you must come, I say that's violence, I won't do it. To belong to a sect, to a group, to a country, to a religion, that is violence, because it separates people. So I see this happening, and am I doing this? To find out if I'm doing, that's real work. That's what I mean by work. Not merely gardening and walking and talking, that's part of it. But the real work is to see, to understand if you live in disorder. You may have tremendous order outwardly, put on good clothes, clean clothes, and wash, and be punctual at all meals and all that kind of stuff, but the real order is inside, whether you are violent, conforming, all that. And because you are in order, you will do things orderly. If you say, I will garden, you will garden. You follow what I mean? Whether it's foul or fair weather. Oh, you don't know. I've done all these things, that's why.
So we do this, and we learn this in doing it, isn't? You're not suggesting that we retire to our rooms and find out.
Well, good God, no. Good God, no. While you are doing, you learn. The doing is the learning.
To find out if we're
of course.
Cooperating.
Of course.
Or whether or not we're conforming. If we're cooperating, then it doesn't create a contradiction. Is that what you're saying?
Therefore, sir, you have to cooperate. Either cooperate because you're compelling me, or circumstances are compelling me, which are violent. But I want to cooperate. I love to cooperate. I want to do things together. That is order. I can't live by myself in a room.
And there's no contradiction there?
No, obviously not, because but if you compel me, or circumstances compel me, or I feel if I don't do it, I'll be looked down upon, or this or that, that is violence. But if I say, I see, we must work together. Life is working together. I can't live by myself. After all, I find out whether I'm violent in doing things with you. How I play, how I talk, how I listen to you. In relationship, I find out. No? Otherwise, I can't find out. I can't sit in my room and try and find out whether I'm violent. I can imagine I'm not violent. But the real test comes, real action is in relationship to see if I am like that. That's real work. And if you do that, you have tremendous energy then, because your life is in order.
What makes one do something? Is it only to see, one only do the thing which one sees necessary?
What makes one do things? Intelligence. Love. Okay. There is no cooperation in the world, right? In the deep sense of the word. 300,000 people cooperated to build the rocket which went to the moon. Their motive was pride, nationalism, profit. The motive was entirely, you follow? But to do things together without a personal motive. I don't know if you follow all this. I love to do things together. First of all, it's done quicker, more efficiently. Whatever the job is, have to do is finish quicker. If 10 of us put our shoulders straight. But most people are driven to do things together through profit, or through belief, through pride, through national antagonism and all the rest of it. My God, when there is a war, they're all working together furiously to kill somebody else. I remember during the war, I was in America, an English woman, lady somebody or other I used to know quite well, and she was there, and she said, "Oh, it's marvellous, simply splendid. We're all sleeping together in the underground. Now there is no classroom, it is splendid, divine, real humanity," and so on, so on, so on. When the war is over, she was back in her castle and all the rest of it. There you can see the violence of it. You follow? Violence of being forced by circumstances, war or other circumstances, to conform to a common, to the common desire for shelter, to be safe. When that pressure is gone, you are back to your old ugliness, that's all.
So is the difference here that we're working, being interested in our work, loving our work, rather than working because we want to make Brockwood a success?
I love, so if I see a piece of paper on the ground, I pick it up. It's not because of Brockwood or anything. It's time to stop, isn't it? 1:45. Bene.